here again with Andreas of Austria, who is back in Vienna. And Vienna is safe, unlike Dallas, Texas, where I am and where the windows are broken. Andreas, greetings.
Yes, hello, hello. I hope you're fine over there in Texas, Dallas. Yeah, Vienna is very safe. I'm observing, or I'm watching the news, and it's very scary. Very weird times with things that I have to see on the internet. So, you want to talk about your experiences of last night?
Oh well, they're not really. I stayed inside, and this is not really affecting me, and it's probably going to happen again tonight. But I think what's interesting though is the bigger question of whether this violence will achieve anything, or what it's there's different motivations obviously between the different people that are out there. Some people just want to steal things, but some people probably very legitimately want to see some sort of a change. And I don't know, perhaps your perspective on this would be interesting as an outsider looking at it.
Yeah, but I don't know if I have the right as an outsider to have a perspective actually. But I mean, if it will achieve something or if will make a change, I have no idea. I just can imagine that the people that wanted to make a change with other means could not achieve it either. So I read one comment particular which I think said a lot, that maybe what is happening over there is for them necessary now, and this basically said we are sick of making hashtags because it did not change anything. And now they're trying to achieve something with violence.
Well, it still is unclear to me what it is they want changed and if there is the chance of anything being changed at all.
I think at the
Because a lot of
beginning,
it seems to me.
for now, I think they just want to be heard the first time. Really, they,
But haven't they been heard already? I mean, we've already gone through this. There's already been some rioting. There was mass destruction already. It just keeps happening over and over.
but maybe
And
maybe it was ignored. I mean, see how fast things can change when there is when politicians are scared of the next night. What will happen again? And now within a short time they arrested the police officers. Now after another night after the arresting of the police officers, now they think of even more harder accusations of the police officers. So it's the pressure probably that could make changes happen faster.
well, okay, I understand they have arrested the police officer, but I feel as though they've almost done that to try and stop
I think
this
yeah.
protest and this destruction. Because when it comes down to it, they have not, in any of these other cases, when the cases went to trial, none of those police officers were found guilty. Even the ones in Baltimore, they broke a guy's neck in the back of a police van. It was brutal what they did to him. They broke his neck. And those guys were not found guilty of murder or anything. I think in the end, what you have is a system which favors the police. I think that no one disputes that. On top of that, I think these police have been trained in a very dangerous way to be very aggressive with any sort of a potential criminal. Maybe this is because Americans have guns.
Yeah, I think
a lot of
I
different
think
things. They're on drugs.
that's one of the main reasons, because there is so much, or because the private people have access to guns, which is very different here in Europe. I mean, it's much more difficult to have a weapon here in Europe, and I also think that because of this fact, a lot of potential police officers don't even consider become a police officer, because they know the chance of getting shot is pretty high in America, because there's so many crazy gun people in the population, And so now they recruit the people from the army, for example, and they are fucked up in their brain after serving in Afghanistan or Iraq or whatever.
Well, that may all be true, but I think the basic training of the police officers is to be very aggressive, and like you say, a lot of that is for their own protection. Mm-hmm. They really need to protect themselves. So you already are in a situation where the cops are legally allowed to use violent force with you if they feel threatened in any way. They can kill you. That is totally acceptable.
I don't know where this comes from, because here in Austria, for example, and even I don't agree with many things I experienced in the last 2.5 months during the lockdown and things like this. But here in Austria, a police officer is basically a friend and a servant. This is how we call them. So if you have a problem, you can go to them and ask them. And I think that's a completely different story in the United States. People are scared of them, right?
Exactly, mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think, though, this is a lot to do also with other bigger issues, which are social inequality. You have extremely poor people. Mm-hmm. You have people who are been brutalized by a system. You know, I'm not absolving these people of smashing windows and hitting people with skateboards and some of the things that they've done as a mob, but there is a social system here which is very destructive to a lot of people. It makes it very hard for them to get started in life.
Especially,
I don't have any big response to fix that, because I think this is a feature of American style capitalism, and I don't see it changing. They can break as many windows as they want, but it won't change. American style capitalism is going to stay, and it's going to continue until it finally dies of its own accord.
I mean, basically, what is happening now? It's another lockdown. I mean, there's so many factors, so many things that are happening right now. There's still the coronavirus around, so this will not make it any better. Because of the violence, there's curfews, which is basically another lockdown, which means there is another economic or negative economic impact or impact on the economy. Maybe that's causing pressure for the leaders of the states and the country to accept certain things that they want to achieve.
Well, I don't think enough can be said about hunger. I know that they showed some pictures of lines for food banks, people lining up to get just basic food, and they're huge lines. The food banks barely have any food to be able to give out to the poor people. And one of the reasons that people are willing to risk their lives and get violent is usually hunger. Revolutions start because of hunger. And this system that we have right now is being exploited by people at the very top to the detriment of the rest of most of the population. And as the middle class disappears more and more and more, you're going to have less people around who want stability and prefer stability. It's just going to be the very people at the top who are going to have a militarized police force to defend them and their businesses and their houses from these looters. Because the whole population potentially, because they're hungry and exploited, could become looters. And then you have all these other elements, whether it's Antifa or whoever they are. Some people just want to see destruction. It's just nihilism. It's godlessness. That's what it is. They're not religious anymore. They just want to destroy.
But this is what is happening for more than 2 months now. The coronavirus reveals things of the society, of our system, and it shows all the negative sides, which were
exactly
which were hidden before, which were not as visible before. I mean, this if the few incidents happened like they did without having the coronavirus, without having more than 40 million unemployed people, without having a high death toll within the black community because of the coronavirus, probably these riots, these protests would not happen at the moment. They are not at this scale.
Yeah.
So it's multiple factors that that led to the protests.
Well, I know you and I have discussed earlier, and you mentioned it to me, that you were hopeful that this coronavirus was going to change the world in some way. It's going to help people see that the way they were living was too destructive, and you were optimistic about
No,
it. And it seems like now
I don't know. For me, it was just for me, the last 2 months were an extremely painful experience because I noticed one thing. We want to go back to the old way, which is basically a very destructive way. Our system is sick. Let's be honest. I mean, for me, I told you on the podcast, we were talking about this many times. I never felt that this is right, the way we live. And I was thinking of, I'm having a small house in the middle of nowhere in Spain. Or when I was in a sailing boat, or when I was working on an island. I think there is a reason why I did, or why I want to do things like this, because I always felt there's something wrong, and the coronavirus even revealed to me that this feeling I had, I started to understand why I had the feeling, and I got a much clearer idea why I wanted to do things like this. I'm not made for this modern world. That's for sure. I completely understand this now. I think I even lost friendships in the last 2 months because I don't understand these people anymore, because they are so used to the prosperity of this beautiful Western life they have. They would never accept that, or they cannot accept that something has to change. So there's not another outbreak of a virus in the future. The economy.
But it's not just viruses, though. It's the massive scale of killing of the other animals, the resource depletion.
Yeah, it's global.
All of
everything,
this is unsustainable.
Is tied
it's
together.
not sustainable.
Global change.
But the whole system.
But even within my family, I mean, I'm an uncle of 10-year-old nieces and nephews. These parents, my siblings, they don't give a fuck what is happening in 30 years. They don't care. Because it's easier for them not to make changes now because they have a good life. And so for them, it's very hard to even think of the coronavirus as a revealing thing, because they don't want any changes. And that was a very painful experience for me, to see that there is probably not many people out there that are willing to accept the change. Even that means that we have to slow down a little bit. But you will see economic growth will be very important. I don't know if this will be possible in the United States for a long time now. Europe is in a much better position because I think here we still can control the coronavirus. Now with the protests in the US, this coronavirus will not be controllable at all. I mean, if these things are getting worse over there, they could even use it as a biochemical weapon. They have the virus in their body.
I don't know. It's I'm still not totally convinced of the coronavirus and its dangers. I think for sure it can be dangerous, but it seems to me that it's something that has been overblown to some degree. I think a lot of people are getting it, don't know they have it. A lot of people are immune to it, just naturally immune to it. Many people, of course, are passing it around, but it's killing old people who are already sick.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, not only old people, but I think the mortality rate is approximately 1%, maybe a little bit less.
But my whole question was, why would they do the lockdown? Why would they do all these things? And I finally came to the understanding that they needed to do a debt reset of all of the major corporations who have become indebted and the banks that support
No, I
them.
don't think that was the reason.
What we're seeing right now, we're seeing it right now. They're doing trillions and trillions of dollars of loans, and what they're doing is resetting the debt so the economy can never go down. They're protecting all of the positions of the asset holders and creditors in all of the economies around the world. That's what's happening. This is being used to protect the system. Instead of, I thought originally it was posing a challenge to the system. It's not. It's further solidifying this system, which is already a terrible system. It's just further solidifying and expanding the differences between the very wealthy at the top and the rest of the population. That's what we've seen with these bailouts and this money spent. It's just enriched the already rich people. They've added zeros to their bank accounts. It's not done anything to help anyone. It's not saved anyone. It's just exponentially increased the wealth and protected them for the next 10 years or so until the next crisis comes. But it's a terrible thing, and it will lead to just more violent acts of outrage. And I could see no way this ends. I don't see any way it ends.
I think they had no clue about this virus. They still don't have a lot of answers about this virus. In China, they're doing a lot of research. This virus has probably some characteristics of HIV. So we will find out if people that were infected get some similar problems like HIV patients over a course of a couple of years. They are observing a lot of similar features or characteristics in the virus already. What is happening in the human body? That's one thing. But I think I don't think that they were even thinking about things like this. Because the actual infections, they never had an idea how many people were actually infected, and people were dying in hospitals in some parts of Europe like crazy. I think they were scared of the mortality rate of the virus, that the healthcare system will collapse, and this will probably happen now in the United States, that the healthcare system will collapse, especially when
there may be legitimate fears related to the virus, but the virus has been used as a pretext for expanding wealth and expanding state power. That is all that has happened as a result of it. And they've done it in a dramatic fashion.
It wouldn't surprise me. It would be just another very painful thing to experience. But what's the point in making people richer and creating so many, especially in the US, creating so many more poor people? I mean, what's the point in having 40, maybe even more million unemployed people?
Well, part of it is... Yeah, but part of it is that the system is based upon credit, especially the last 40 years of life in America. Everything has been financialized. They've used borrowing and leverage and exotic debt instruments to increase the stock market and increase GDP. It's not been based on real discoveries. The internet was the last great real discovery, and that created positive government income for the first time instead of deficits. But now we don't have any new discovery. We just have a bunch of wizards of finance who are creating instruments that they're trading, and no one understands really how they work and how risky they could be. And they pose threats to the entire economic system, which inevitably poses threats for all these poor people who suddenly will have no job and no bank account, and the ATMs won't work, and they won't get anything, and they'll be rioting in the streets. So there are real threats to the system of just total anarchy, and that's why the police are as radical as they are in their treatment. But it means that these, because of the indebtedness, to keep the indebted bubble building, they continually need to add fresh debt to it. So it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And in the process of doing this, the government itself is taking on debt and monetizing the debt with the Treasury and Federal Reserve actions. And the end result is that they're going to cause hyperinflation. There's just no way around it. And then the system is totally done. We become Zimbabwe or Weimar Germany, and it's over. But before it gets to that point, we're going to be living in a terrible police state where the police have unlimited powers. The government has unlimited powers, and they'll do it. They'll do it because they say they're trying to protect you, keep you safe from a virus, from looters, from whatever, from the Russians. They're always creating these boogeymen, and the media is complicit in this because it sells newspapers. Fear is very powerful. So I don't think the system is. Keep talking about the system changing. The system's been going on for a long time. I told you before that it's been going on since agriculture appeared, and the growth of the first states, and rich people, and all this kind of thing. This is 500 or 5000 BC where you have the first emergence of this, and technology has caused it to become even more powerful.
Yeah, but even a very technological, powerful system at some point has to collapse. Don't you think so? And maybe it's the time now that we.
I don't think it collapses because of humanity or something that we do. I think it collapses because the Earth no longer supports that form of life. And I've spoken about this before, and I just as the Earth allowed agriculture to appear after the Ice Age ended, the Earth will take away agriculture. The Earth will take away things. And the form of life of men will change, and hopefully it'll change for the better. But at the same time, though, we still have all these technologies which are perhaps enabling us to flee the Earth and go somewhere else. So I don't know. I don't know how it'll end, but the system is already. People keep saying, "Oh, it's reached a point where it's in trouble." I don't know. They announce that all the time, but. Dying systems can go on for quite a long time before they're really eradicated.
Probably it is dying for a long time already. But I mean, there's so many unknown factors. Look at now we are. It's the 1st of June. I think that's the official start of the hurricane season in the United States, right?
There's that too.
They are predicting an extreme hurricane season. They are predicting an extremely hot summer in Europe and in America. That in combination with protests going on for a long period with spreading the coronavirus, I don't see the economy recovering there at all compared to Europe. In Europe, we're opening the borders already. We try to do, we try to. Or the people are conditioned to deal with the coronavirus self-responsibly, and we will see how this will work. But we don't have outside factors like hurricanes. There's no such thing like a hurricane, and of course we don't have people protesting on the street. So there's not so many mass gatherings.
Has in Europe, has there been a politicization of the virus? Here in America we have Trump does not wear a mask; he refuses to. So now you have all of these Republicans and people on the right who show their support by not wearing a mask and by ignoring the social distancing regulations.
It was mostly followed.
Then you have people on the left who wear the mask.
It is mostly followed here. I haven't seen. Rarely anybody in the metro and the supermarket without a mask. It's if it's somebody, it's probably a very low educated right wing person.
So it does indicate their politics if you don't wear a mask to some.
Yeah, but I mean these incidents were extremely rare in Austria. Austria is not known as a country to have a lot of protesters anyway. So people are following the rules. The rules, how they set the rules, it was done in a way. They created fear. They lied. They were not very transparent about the new temporary laws, which were actually communicated differently than it was actually written on paper. So even for lawyers, it was very hard to read what is actually true now. And so on purpose, they made these laws as intransparent as possible.
Yeah, it sounds like what happened here, and probably in most places. That's it's the it's the interesting thing is that they enact temporary laws, temporary measures, and then these become permanent.
Yeah.
And state power doesn't have a tendency to recede or to go away. It only expands. It only goes in one direction, and it's always been
Yeah,
that
that's the
way.
reason why I don't want to have
And
this Corona app on my phone.
well, eventually there might be the case where they say if you're not vaccinated, you can't work. If you can't if you refuse to be tracked, then you're guilty of a criminal offense. It's a crime. They could, in the interest of public health, they're able to do all kinds of things to you. And yeah, I don't know. That's why I think you can't be so pessimistic about the way things are headed, because they're going to go there. They were always going to go here. They were always going to come. The state was always going to get more powerful. Viruses were always going to come through, sweep through populations. They've been doing that since the earliest cities. The earliest cities where people were living in terrible conditions. There were probably riots going on all the time. The police were beating people up. There was injustice everywhere. They were nasty places to live.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is no different. This is normal.
I mean, there's
I
one
wonder why it
difference
doesn't happen more often.
because of all the technological tools nowadays. It accelerates the influence of the state.
Well, and also it makes mob action that much more powerful. The creation of these mobs and the fake news. If you make some fake video, that people will believe it, even if they know it's not true. They'll believe it and they'll do something. They'll act. And I think the American people are very manipulatable for some reason. I just feel like you maybe in Austria that you wouldn't believe something first, that would be your first reaction. But in America, if people are so either left or they're right, they believe any news that supports their position and they get emotional about it. And this is one of the new developments of the technology, which is disturbing because it creates mobs and huge crowds that are very difficult to stop. You're not going to stop them with a machete. That doesn't work. That poor guy.
Oh my God, that looked so bad. Yeah.
Well, apparently that guy's alive.
Yeah.
Apparently. I thought he was going to get killed. You get hit like that. Brutal stuff. But, a great German philosopher said at the end of an essay, I think it was an essay about technology, or no, it was something he wrote about, because he was a Nazi too. Martin Heidegger. He wrote, "Only a God can save us now," and it seemed like a puzzling thing for the guy like that to say, but I think it's true. The idea that men would save themselves from this fate, it's not for them to choose. They don't choose the solution to this. You can't change the world, and the change is always divinely inspired. It will come from more powerful forces than we could ever comprehend or understand.
Which would again be something that could create something like an ice age, for example.
For sure. These are, or like asteroids or volcanoes. Think about all these, or even a virus. A virus is something that's just uncontrollable and it affects everyone, and we can't stop it, or it forces changes upon us.
Yes.
But the idea that an individual person would want to change the world or have a vision of what the world should be, these people are nasty people to be around. You don't want to be around people that say, "I want to change the world." These are stupid rioters and looters. These are moronic politicians. These people cause more trouble than they solve. And the real changes happen because people are optimistic and hopeful, and they mind their own business, and they protect their families, and they're honest. And in that sense, they allow the greater changes, the good changes, to positively appear. They make a space for them. Amor, estoy hablando con un podcast. Yo tengo un podcast con Andreas ya mismo. Estoy hablando. ¿Puedes salir con Nina a ese ruido? Gracias, amor. Más tarde, ¿ok? Un segundo. Estoy hablando. Yes, Andreas.
Okay. You want to take a break?
No. It was just it was a commercial interruption for our Spanish
Yeah,
speaking friends.
So
But
the audience is multilingual already.
they have to be. You know, you never know. You never know when another language could just intrude on the discussion. And we don't ever hear German, but we could definitely hear it if we needed to.
It would make
I wouldn't
make
understand.
things so much easier for me. And
but they do fine in English.
you could quote all of your great philosophers correctly, because now you're quoting them in a translated version.
I know German is one of the languages. If I had to learn one more language, and I don't want to learn any more languages, it would be German, because all of the most important philosophers wrote in German. I mean, you just have such a great wealth of great writers.
Because the language is more complex than English.
But you're right. Perhaps there was something in particular about the German language which it allows for certain types of thinking.
Yeah, the more complex the language is, I think the more complex the thought can be.
You know, one of the interesting things about German philosophy, and it starts with Schopenhauer. He was the first pessimist who was not optimistic about the future. And he began what became a string of philosophers, German speakers, Austro-Hungarians, etc., who were all very pessimistic about the future. Wittgenstein was one of them as well. Heidegger, of course. Nietzsche, of course. These are all people who said, right now sucks. This is terrible. Modernity is terrible. Industrialization is terrible. This is awful. We live in an awful time. But you know what's interesting? As awful as they all say it was, they would say, people have been saying it's awful for like 150 years. They're going on like 200 years of people saying, it sucks, it sucks, it sucks. And guess what? I think Schopenhauer would say, God, it really sucks now. It sucked when I was around, but it really sucks now. This is terrible. You know, but the pessimism is an interesting movement, because you don't have a lot of optimism anymore in philosophy. You don't have you have the people who want utopia, but most of the people who want utopia want it because they think our current situation is so terrible. Here's what we need, and we need to destroy everything and create something new. But you don't have people who are saying, yeah, it's really a great time, with the exception of the Silicon Valley people. I guess those are the ones who are optimistic.
I'm not one of them. And I don't even know where we are heading to. I cannot imagine how this utopia should be. I think the best way to live as a human being, which is not probably possible anymore, is like they did 10,000-15,000 years ago.
Yes, I agree with you. It's not possible anymore.
No, it's not.
Really?
No, and I think it was a great life back then, because first of all, you were not even thinking if this is a great time or not. You were just existing like an animal. And now we have to deal with so much bullshit, and we need growth, but I don't even know where we're growing to.
Well, one of the things that's always interesting is when choice is taken away and you live by necessity only. And living by necessity is a great way to live. You know, when I was cycling and I just needed food and water and a place to sleep, that's all you think about. Food, water, place to sleep.
Definitely.
Where's the next town? What am I gonna do? Your needs are the only thing you're concerned with. And I was so joyful and happy. I was so at peace. And you're physically working out every day. I believe that this was probably very similar to hunter-gatherer life, where but they also had the one thing that they were spending lots of time with their families. You have these great communities. They were probably very religious and very united. And so you felt wonderful. And you were not feeling like a lonely individual. You were a part of something glorious.
Yeah, definitely.
And,
as I think you mentioned it a couple of times earlier, a smaller community is something much more healthy than these big states and societies we live in. We cannot relate to the people. We don't know the people. We don't care basically very much what is happening.
But But they promote this nonsense. They promote this nonsense of globalization, like I'm supposed to care about what's going on in the Sudan or some migrants
No, I
that
mean,
drowned on the beach in Turkey. I don't care. I care about my family, and that's the only people I want to care about. I care about the 7-Eleven that just got looted.
no,
The
I'm
Vietnamese
different.
couple that
So,
I'm
for
friends with
example, I
over
don't.
there that own it.
I basically lost the sense of family. I think kind of, but since the coronavirus appeared, or at least for me, because on the island, I did not get so much information about it. So I was very surprised when I left the island and I was confronted with the coronavirus. But since more than 2 months now, or for more than 2 months now, I noticed that I'm disappointed because or that I care about the world, but which means kind of that I care about the people, and for me it was always more interesting to see how the coronavirus numbers are climbing up in certain parts of the world, because this is where I expected more pain, more dead people, like in the southern hemisphere. So for me, this was always more important than our own countries. I really care about these places because these are the ones that don't deserve it to be in these difficult situations, or they deserve it less than we do, because we are the ones that created this, basically.
Yeah, but everyone is sort of complicit in it. From Ecuador, who accepted lots of Chinese investment. They've been hit by the virus very badly because they have a lot of Chinese people there. But their former president cut all those deals to build roads and highways with Chinese money, cheap Chinese money. They sold out their countries to foreign interests.
Yeah.
Colombia's mines are all operated by American companies. So the political class of these countries has sold its resources, just not to their own, not exploited it with their own companies, but with foreign interests. Africa has done the same thing.
This is what happens all the time, and it will happen if
This is the system of
if
capitalism.
the protests
global capitalism.
in the US will lead to a change. It will happen there again too. Today I saw on CNN, I saw this old black guy talking, and he said, we tried it in the past. We put some black faces in high places, black faces in high places, and these people how did he say, accommodated to their environment, and they became the same, basically
exactly
the same
right.
people like the white people did it before.
Exactly right. It is not a system, and this is where the people are getting it wrong. The system says it must operate this way, and it actually doesn't matter whether you're white or black. These cops are killing white people, Latino people. They're following their standard procedures. They're taught. They're doing what they're taught to do, and their training is saying that they should do. Is it affecting blacks more? I don't know. The statistics are not clear about that, and they've been very much politicized. But there's a video I just saw of them killing a white guy with the same technique: the knee on the back of the neck, the guy on the ground. And these cops are laughing about this white guy not being able to go to work the next day and saying something. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's all recorded, and the guy died. He was a young white guy. So and there's no protest for that, but it's almost a distraction to say that it's racist cops. It's moving the topic away from the real topic. This is a system which is very much aligned against poor people and defenseless people. And if you live in a city and you live in the wrong neighborhood, you have a very good chance of being abused and killed by a police officer just because of the fact that you're poor and you're viewed as dangerous. And it has nothing to do with your skin color. It may sometimes, but generally it doesn't. It's a wealth issue. And the racism stuff, I believe the politicians are using that as a distraction from the systemic problem, which is a terrible exploitation of the planet to the benefit of a very small percentage of people globally.
Yeah, I mean, even in the last few months during the Corona period, these billionaires, they got richer. What's the point? I don't understand this.
They did. They made all this
Yeah.
money. But this is getting back to what I was saying earlier, which is that this has been exploited. It may be a very well exist as a virus, but it's been exploited to reset the financial system and reset the credit instruments, which are already very stressed out. We were probably very close to having a sort of a debt problem globally, and now they've been able to use the coronavirus as a reason to reset all of the indebtedness under new terms and new deals and new loan instruments. So it saved all of these people who were just borrowing to inflate their stock price and buy more homes and leverage and buy more businesses and strip them of assets. All the things they do, it's financial tricks. They're not creators. They're not inventive. They just do these financial tricks where they move the money around. And these people have all been saved to continue another 10 years before we get into another crisis. That's all that's happening.
I wonder what is the motivator, what drives these people. I really cannot understand it at all, because all these things, they don't matter to me at all.
But they're playing a game, I think. It's a game of getting richer, and everyone wants to be richer than their neighbor. It's competitive.
It's stupid.
And they don't also have, I mentioned to you before that you have a religious feeling. I know you say you're not a religious person, but you are. You're intensely religious because you have a moral feeling. You have a feeling about how you need to act in the world. You're driven by these values. You're not trying to injure things. It's extremely strong, this religious feeling that you have. These people don't have that. They say, I'm playing a game and I'm going to hire a bunch of lawyers to manipulate the game and to make it so it makes it easier for me. And I'm going to speak to politicians. And if I get in trouble in this game, then they'll just bail me out so I can't lose. And I'm going to try and have more money and things than my neighbor. And it's selfishness, it's ego, it's individualization of people and bank accounts. And
are people born like this, or are people made to be like this? Do you think?
Well, I've been working on this idea. I've been working on this idea philosophically about the individual, and I think we live in this moment of heightened individuality. Whether it's people who say, "I'm my social security number and my bank account. I'm my Twitter account and my Facebook page." People have a big sense and strong sense of identity. I'm white, I'm black, I'm gay, I'm a he, she, they're creating all these new genders, and they're creating all these things about themselves. Everything's about themselves and how they present themselves to other people. This is also an expression of the same mentality that causes the elite to want to have more money. It's all about the individual, broken away from the community, exploiting their neighbors, exploiting anything they can exploit to be more of the individual they want to be. And they've all accepted the same game standards of money and things, the same brands, corporate brands and all that. So anyway, everyone's playing this game of look at me. And I think in the past, though, people didn't have this sense. People felt like they were a part of a community and a family. One of the things I always come back to is when the Roman Empire fell during the Middle Ages, people didn't have names anymore. They were so lacking in individuality that they didn't even choose to name themselves.
Seriously?
They weren't people. It seems to me, though, that this is possible when you have no state telling you. Think about the state telling you all the time, you are this name and you're this number, you're this bank account and you're this Facebook page. Like everything is being, in China they have the social, a social ranking system where they rank you. This you've heard about this?
No, this? Like one of these Netflix.
They're doing it in China.
Mirror,
episode that is happening in China.
Seriously? Oh my god! I mean, it's happening here already.
They're doing it.
People are kind of rated already.
Did you hear about that Netflix show? I think they stopped doing it because they found that too many of the episodes were becoming true.
Yeah.
I think some guy said something like that. But in any case, we live in this moment of heightened individuality, and I can think of nothing that's worse for the earth and the relationships with other people than to live this abstraction. Because I don't think it's true. I don't think individuals exist. So I've been. I think really my next work in philosophy is to work on dismantling the individual, and to show all of the areas in which the individual is a bad philosophical idea. Because I think a lot of people think, well, bad philosophy, the ideas just won't work. That's not true. Bad philosophy, the ideas can work. They can be carried out. You had Nazi Germany, which was a bad philosophy that killed a lot of people. It's silly, but people still followed it. You have any sorts of bad philosophies can have terrible effects. But one of the worst, I believe, is this philosophy of the individual and the ego. And this comes from hundreds of years of Western philosophy. That's where it comes from. I think Asian people don't have the sense of the individual as much. It's much different, and the language doesn't allow for it, and there's cultural reasons probably as well. But language is really the big one. So it's looking at the language of the individual and the language that creates the individual, and then analyzing it. But it's a bigger philosophical idea. But I think if things are to change in the future,
I think
the individual must be lessened. The community, the small community, must return.
I think the Asian upper class probably even lost the moral values even more than the Western upper class.
But aren't the upper classes of any country in the world today, aren't they all the same?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Maybe the methods by which they've achieved their wealth maybe are somewhat different for the country, but the mechanisms for becoming wealthy and the life they lead is probably all basically the same thing, and they're probably all friends with each other.
Yeah, I think so too.
Go to the same cocktail parties, have sex with the same young supermodels.
Yeah, I don't have so much insight in their lives. I try to avoid them anyway.
But I think though when I try and explain something to somebody like a religious feeling, I think of like I would say to someone, go to the Grand Canyon. Go to the Grand Canyon and look over this beautiful landscape that's taken such millennia to be formed, and such great powers formed it. And it's so huge and massive. And how could you not see all that and feel something? That is a religious feeling. That's the feeling from which gods appear. That is the feeling from which caring for your fellow human beings comes. We've lost this connection with the natural world, and I think the natural world, it can give us our inspiration. It can show us the way. We're so, our culture and everything is so derivative now of technology. And technology is just seeing yourself everywhere you go. Technology is always looking in the mirror. You just see men, the things men have created. It's just a selfish way to live. You're constantly being reminded of yourself and other men, with your own species. But go look at, when you're on the ocean is beautiful. You have a religious feeling. I think all of your experiences have given you this feeling about the earth and about life. But these are natural world experiences, aren't they?
I don't know if I would call them religious experiences, but what I think is that you can appreciate nature probably only when you don't fear it, when you're not scared of it. So I think you need a way to understand the rules of nature. To have a feeling. Otherwise, look at these Instagram influencers. They see nature as a beautiful beach or whatever. They see it as a motive for a good picture. That's all they see. Nothing else. They don't experience much more. Being part of it, being part of this beautiful place, I think can only happen when you understand certain rules of this place, and you're not scared of it.
But also, it's also in the way we traveled to places. For one thing, you and I both didn't take cameras there to show off to our friends and say, "Look at me, look at where I've been." We also didn't travel to places thinking, this is just a short vacation and I can go back to the real world, the better world in Vienna or wherever city you were living in. I was always traveling on one-way tickets and I was looking for something. I was looking to change my life. I was looking for a better place to live. I was looking for better everything. And so I was very open to new ideas, new languages. All these backpackers, they've already decided that their own way of life at home is the superior way of life, that the way they live is better than the one that's happening here in Colombia or Peru, and they would never think of living in such a place.
Yeah, it was very similar for me actually. I never, how do you call it, a sabbatical? For me, it was never such a thing like this because when I left, basically, I was like you, looking for something, and I constantly looked for a place where I could finally settle down, or even a job over there. But I don't know. For me, it was not collecting visa stamps and the passport.
But also, it's being intellectually able to live that other form of life, and that starts with learning the language. Then you got to live there. You have to make a real commitment if you want to do it. I was just reading an article about it was about primitive societies, and it was about trying to understand them. And a lot of the anthropological work done about primitive societies, it makes an error where it's taking the standpoint of science and anthropology, and it can never get outside of that standpoint. And so this guy was writing about this tribe, and this tribe that practices witchcraft, and they consult an oracle to see about if someone is a witch is plotting against them. And anyway, this guy goes into the logic of all of it. He's observed the tribe and what they do, and then at the very end he says, "But of course the witchcraft isn't true, and we know that the rain comes for the reasons of science and da 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 da." He's missed the point entirely. He's basically just said that science has already given the definitive answer, and that these people are wrong somehow, and that they are primitives who are only on their way to a scientific understanding, which is the correct one. And that is exactly the Western mistake that is destroying the planet, that we cannot get outside of our own thinking, which is this scientific, reason-based causality. We have all of these biases. These are just biases, and they're implicit in the language, and they're implicit in everything we do, and they've been created and supported by states and corporations to advance their own interests. So to get outside of this, we need some idea that would break through, to break through science. Even Christianity has bowed down to science. Christianity used to stand against science. But when the Bible submitted itself to science, and you had all these Christians who said, okay, well, the Bible then is wrong, they started to break God down. They didn't do a defense of godliness. And so you have people now who just turn to science for answers to everything. But science can never give you a reason to live. Science cannot give you meaning in your life. One of the beauties of the Genesis story, whether you're Christian or not, is that it gives an explanation for the world as well as a reason for why you live and how you should live. It's the combination of both things. Science can give you an explanation for the world. It can give you the Big Bang Theory, but that doesn't tell you how you should live your life. It doesn't give you ideas of right or wrong and things you should do and shouldn't do. It doesn't give you that at all. So we have a real ethical and what I would say religious lack in our world, because the stories we have are reasonable and scientific, but those stories do not show us how to live. And so you have people who are just broken away. They have corporations telling them how to live, states telling them how to live. We need a religious understanding, and that comes from the earth itself. That comes from the most basic stories. The mythologies that we have are wrong, because science is another myth. It's another grand creation story, but it's the worst one ever created. It's the worst one ever created because it doesn't give us a meaning for life. It doesn't give us any prescription on how to live our days. It doesn't give that at all. And the people who want to interpret evolution and say, well, survival of the fittest, those are all capitalists who say, yes, we should screw our neighbors and steal and do this because survival of the fittest, that's the way of the world. Look at the animals. Da, da, da. That's an interpretation. That's just literary. That's literary right there. That's not science. So we have a real issue here. And I know Nietzsche pointed it out with the death of God and all that, but really he was saying is you've killed God by denying him a place in the most basic of stories. You've stripped those stories of their power. And the only way those stories can return to power or new stories can be born is some rebirth of religious feeling. I think people want to be religious again. They do. They're desperate.
Okay. What could that be, for example, in your opinion?
Well, I know that there's been some proposal about like a new mythology that is supportive of the Earth. Like, have you ever heard this Gaia theory? Like the Earth Mother. They tried to promote this thing like you worship. And I don't know how religious it really is, but you start to think of the whole planet as a mother, and that you need to be good to it, and that would lead to ethical understanding, and people would be nicer to each other. And there's a scientific component too, because they use science in it.
So it is reasonable, or it is understandable, logically understandable.
But it's created by humans. But the problem I have with it is that it's created by humans with a political and economic motivation, and there seem to be just creating something within the same system we already have. I think the change of the world happens because the world decides to change. Men don't change the world does. And the gods do, and these things. This is how it happens. This audacity of human beings, this terrible hubris that they think that they're in control. I hate that. I really hate that. That's why I love natural disasters. I like this coronavirus thing. It shows men that they're not in control, and this feeling of not being in control. That is a space in which a religious feeling can come, where you realize there are forces bigger than you, the forces that made the Grand Canyon. The forces that, longer forces, go look at the trees in California that are 3,000 years old, give you some perspective beyond your own life. You spoke earlier about, people just living for themselves and not even for the next generation, not caring about what the next generation will have. That's the extreme to which this individuality has gotten, where you don't even care about your children's children. Oh, I'll be dead then, so screw them. It doesn't matter. I'm going to enjoy today. I mean, what a shocking way to live. But it's if this is not dealt with somehow, and some sort of cataclysm doesn't occur, it'll just continue. It'll get worse and worse, I suppose. I mean, there's all these people that say bleak things, but it will have to end eventually. The Earth can't support it, or it'll slow down. It'll mutate. I don't know what'll happen.
Yeah, maybe a calibration is happening.
Maybe I
personally
we'll
hope that
end up on the ground.
These whatever aliens come and they say, okay, and we gave you the possibility to make the best out of it the last 13,000 years or longer. You did not succeed, so. We take.
Well, you've been watching the alien stuff.
Yeah, that was interesting, actually.
Graham Hancock, he's a lot of fun. I enjoy it, but I'm interested in it for different reasons, though. I don't know about the aliens. I reject the idea, though, that of progress. I reject the idea that somehow in the past people were stupider and they didn't have great things. There's a guy I really like, a philosopher, English guy who's still alive, John Gray, and he thinks that knowledge can't be destroyed. He thinks that knowledge can't be forgotten, or he thinks we're so far along in terms of intellectual life that we could not go back. But we're going back all the time. We're forgetting how to do things all the time. I don't know where he gets this from. There's all kinds of evidence.
Okay.
And these flying ships that apparently were dug up and have been sighted by the Air Force and Navy, this to me is further evidence that there are older cultures that perhaps had incredible technologies, and that things can be destroyed and lost. And certainly an ice age would be a reason why you'd lose things. If the Earth is suddenly covered with ice, that seems like a pretty big thing.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just for me. It was very interesting to listen to these guys that are so authentically convinced that there must have been something else thousands of years ago. Do I agree or do I believe it? I have no idea. I don't judge them for being weirdos or geeks. It's just, I think, a very interesting way to spend your lifetime with and try to find or get some answers. But yeah, things definitely can be forgotten. So many things we still could do 50 years ago. Our parents, they have so many skills. I see it when I'm in Southeast Asia. These people have skills and find ways to solve a problem in a way I could never think of. And it's always very inspiring to see the people using tools or making tools, where I think we need to go to Home Depot.
Oh, it's definitely true. You know that during the Dark Ages, for 1,000 years, the skill of bricklaying was forgotten. So no one was able to build any buildings for 1,000 years.
I think they still haven't figured out how they built the pyramids, right?
Oh, right. They don't know how they did that. They don't know how they put together those rocks in Peru. Even more recent things, they don't know how. I collect all these records. They don't know how they did the laminate. They laminated the covers on these old records from the 1950s. Okay. It happened in the 50s, early 60s, where they did laminate it.
What is it called? The
covers are beautiful. No, that's the kind of record itself. But I'm talking about the cardboard covers. Okay. They put this glossy layer on them that protected them, and it looks beautiful. And they forgot how to do this. Nobody knows how to do this.
Yeah, things can easily be.
They've tried to reproduce them, and that's just from 50 years ago. It's just incredible. And how many kids are forgetting how to read a map? Now we have a GPS to tell you where to go. Just your natural coordinates from walking around, you'd know where north and south, east, west are. So things are being forgotten all the time, and so I reject this idea, but I also reject the idea that there wasn't perhaps greater technologies in the past, or technology could at some point reach a peak, and that technology after that could go into decline. Like the newest thing is not always the best thing. Music is one. Recorded music is one example. They were recording.
But music is not technology. It's art. So it's hard to compare art
the reproducing.
Anyway.
But the reproduction of music, they were cutting records in 1950s and 1960s. They were making vinyl and cutting the music onto record, but the record players at the time could not unlock the full capacity of the vinyl and the sound. It's only like much later that the record players were able to come and catch up to the abilities of the people cutting the records. So you had a case where the technology was not moving at the same growth rate, and now it's arguable that things are not being done as well as they were in the past. The records are not being cut the same way. They have new machinery which is not as good. They seem to have all these new possibilities and options, and in the past everything was very limited. And in fact, there seems to be an argument for having lots of limits on things, which makes you much more creative and interesting. Which is actually what I prefer. I think actually limits are good.
I think so too.
Having no options,
not too many options, and not too many choices. Definitely makes life so much harder to have all of these options. I think that's why people are struggling to be very happy nowadays, because there's way too many options. I mean, think back, because recently I was thinking about how we are told to need the newest type of technology every year or on a regular basis after 2 years, whatever. I don't know. The iPhone definitely was one of these products that definitely made it worse. So it not only in the sense that it was this phone that you could use with your fingers, which was much more usable than the phones before. Not only in that sense, it was a big revolution, but also I think because it told us that we need something next year which is faster and better and more beautiful, and I think many people are trapped. They really think they need the next model next year again, and it's let it be the shoes, the newest Nike Air Jordan, whatever, the newest Gucci handbag or Louis Vuitton, the SUV, the next model. People are in this trap, and so they really found a psychological way to guarantee economical growth.
Well, it's based upon, though, I believe all this is based upon the individual again, where they're saying you need these things, you need to present them, that you have them on your Instagram or your Facebook. You need to, and this is being dictated by corporations. Like the options for life now are not options that you create personally, but are things that you feel that you need to consume. You now have an intermediary between who you want to be, and that intermediary is the state and the corporation. And they filter for you your options, and they're involved in every aspect of your life. They're keeping track of who you are and what you purchase and who you talk to, and people are very comfortable with that. The idea that you'd go off and you create something yourself and you wouldn't present it, or you wouldn't, that idea is past. It's all about the individual person now, and that there's this struggle to consumption is this competitive game, and they've done a great job of marketing that to people, and the banks are willing to extend credit, and the rich people who control those mechanisms get richer.
Oh my God! I was really hoping that the coronavirus will be able to make a change in the way people think of things, but they will be as stupid, or we will be as stupid as before. I just hope that I finally can live somewhere where I don't have to deal with all of this bullshit, because this is really bullshit.
I agree. For people who are feeling very affected by this, or emotionally affected by all this, like things we're talking about, it's not worth thinking about, really. You have to complete your projects. You need to find good projects and complete them. And it has nothing to do with the coronavirus. It has nothing to do with the state. Let the state do its thing. Let the corporations do their thing. Let the looters do their thing. Protect your family and protect your friends, and get your good projects done. Have great projects and get them done.
But it's not only about having a project.
Shakespeare wrote great work during the bubonic plague. I
think it's also about where you are. I mean, you're stuck now I think I can say stuck. Or you're based now in Dallas, and I think even for a person like you that is so much into your personal projects, you cannot ignore the things that are happening right now, and they have probably a negative impact on your emotional state.
They do.
You see,
and
this is, I don't want to be informed anymore of what is happening in the world, because it's not going to be a good thing. Let it be. It was a successful year with economic growth, or it was another successful with economic decline, and there is this virus and this pandemic and this tropical thunderstorm. I really don't want to know these things anymore, because first of all, I care for the people that don't have possibilities to protect themselves properly in the southern hemisphere, or also the poor people. I sympathize with the people in America right now that are on the streets and protesting, because I always sympathized with the less privileged people. I don't know where this comes from, but it was always like this. But the best thing would be that I don't even have to sympathize with somebody, because I don't even know what is happening in the world. I think that would be the ideal scenario. I'm lacking skills to be able to do this, and I hope I will find a way to gain these skills.
I agree with you. I'm trying to do the same thing. I'd like to get away from this entirely.
Maybe we should make a plan together then.
Yeah. I mean, I know you working on the Spain thing. I'm working on the West Texas thing. But there's no reason why those would be exclusive of each other. I mean, we're working towards the same objectives, just on different continents. But I would say one thing to what you just said, though. I'm not very sympathetic to these looters and protesters who need a group, who need a crowd to be able to get their courage. These people, to me, are cowards. They're terrible cowards with weak characters. These are exactly the kind of people who get in terrible debt and are manipulated by the state and the corporation. They may be victims. They may very well be victims. But these people are terrible dangers. You have to shoot them. If they come to your house, you have to just kill them. You have to kill as many as you can to protect your family. Yes, you may be killing people who themselves have been victimized and traumatized by states and corporations. But yes, those other people are evil too. They're all evil. The devilry is within all of them. Shoot, 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 and keep shooting until you don't have any bullets. You can't worry about these people. But the best, though, is to get away from them so that they can't find you. But if they do find you and try and come through your door, you have to kill them.
But do you think they have the intention to loot private places? I mean, I don't know. For me, it's hard to observe the situation in America. I'm in the safe country of Austria. I only see some tweets and news and things like this.
I won't speak about the other cities. I'll only speak about the city I'm in, and particularly my neighborhood. And they looted a couple places that I know, and I know the owners of one. And I'm shocked by it. I'm disgusted by it.
Of course.
And the 7-Eleven. They're these nice people, these nice immigrant people that work in there at night, and they were in there probably working when these people came and smashed all their windows and ran into the store and looted it right in front of them. I can't imagine the terror that they must have felt.
So they are not even selective when it comes to the stores they are destroying or looting.
No, it's not like they say, "Oh, this store is run by a racist."
But I mean, if it's a company, a special brand or whatever, I mean, that would make so much more sense to me if they show, okay, that's a symbol of the capitalistic system that is abusing us. We are victims of this, so let's destroy this. That would make so much more sense.
I don't know if anyone has ever made the argument that 7-Eleven is a terrible agent of capitalism and exploitation. It's a corner store chain selling coffee and bad food.
It's a multinational company, billions of dollars revenue probably. No, yeah, definitely.
There's good or bad as any other corporation. I'm just saying there's no argument to be made that it should be singled out as being worthy of being more than another place.
I'm not a looter anyway.
Looted some guy.
There is probably better and worse looting.
Well, they looted also in my neighborhood down the street. They looted a sneaker store filled with like a lot of the young people are interested in those expensive sneakers.
This makes me even laugh. I mean, it showed me first of all that the people are really influenced by brands and whatever makes people think that they need a new pair of sneakers. So it shows me once more time that all the moral values are gone, because this should not be of any importance. But on the other hand,
all this looting is it's within the same system. It's all within the same system of capitalism. Yeah. No one has stepped outside capitalism in any of this. The looters, the police, they're all operating in the same systematic framework.
But on the other hand, I have to laugh about it because destroying something which is a symbol of the system of which they are a victim. I'm not sad about things like this, but then the intention behind it makes me sad because it's another lost soul, basically.
Did you see the one video of the looter dressed all in black, stealing a cheesecake?
No.
Walking very carefully, holding a cheesecake that they stole from a cheesecake store in Portland or something, a bakery. It was a girl dressed up, and she was holding this cheesecake that was so fragile. She had a beautiful cheesecake. She's dressed in her military outfit, and they've been destroying everything, but she saved this cheesecake, and she's carrying it with both hands carefully, not to drop it through the crowds of protesters and looters. It's such a beautiful image. It's so beautiful. Saving this cheesecake. She's gonna go eat it somewhere. This cheesecake that she's looted. Share it with her fellow friends or fellow looters.
But
Wonderful.
do you think there is some system behind the looting? Do they use vehicles to pick up the stuff, or?
I don't know. I think for these people who aren't themselves business owners, I think they probably just think any business is exploitation, and they have money, and I don't have money, and they have things. What the reality though is that most of these small businesses are in terrible debt, and now they're going to be bankrupt. They're ruined. If the coronavirus didn't ruin them, now they're ruined because of looting, and it's sad. They'll fail, and the owners will be ruined financially
Oh, that
if they don't have insurance.
yeah, that's going to be sad. So they will share the destiny of so many other millions people. Yeah, I don't know where this is leading.
Yeah.
I mean, if there are less and less perspectives for more and more people, this could become an even more dangerous situation than it is right now. And for you personally, I hope for the best, that you find a way to get away from Dallas and go to a place where it's more beautiful and safe. And I think, as much as I would like to go back to the United States because it's such a beautiful country, I think I'm done with it.
Yeah, but don't let it. You know how beautiful the country is when you get outside these cities. We're just speaking about a very few places in the country. The country is filled with wonderful people and wonderful places, but they don't ever get reported on by the news media, which is based on the coasts and then.
As you know, Europeans are very arrogant when it comes to Americans, because Europeans think that Americans are not educated at all. I mean, it shows in the result of the election of Donald Trump. It's true. I mean, that's definitely a signal that there is something wrong in the society. But I think also the capitalism, the whole system, I think the toxicity within the people's minds is more progressed in Americans than in Europeans. And I mean, you and another friend from the United States I have, you are like, you must be rare examples in this country, because you have extremely high moral values. You are not manipulatable at all. You just do your own thing. Whatever is happening around the world or in your life around you, you just don't care. And I think that's very inspiring. And more people should be like this. And I don't know why people are influenced so easily. I also don't understand why this white supremacy mindset in the United States is still so prominent. You know, this white supremacy mindset, I think.
Yeah.
It exists. It exists in every white person. Some people suppress it very successfully. I don't know where this comes from, but that in America this thing cannot be controlled at all. I have no idea where this comes from.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know how true that is. I mean, it wasn't. I certainly was not raised with that idea. I know that's being promoted a lot now, but this to me is more of a media creation and a university creation by these very left groups who want to see economic and social and political history in the United States in terms of race. And so they view everything in terms of race. And there's other groups who are feminists that view everything in terms of male and female relationships, and they see men as dominating, and they call it the patriarchy. And they say that white men are the most privileged. And unfortunately, that sort of thinking has become part of the universities. It's made white men to feel, especially white straight men, not gay men, to feel like they're under attack. And it's now getting a response. So they're feeling like they're being attacked in the media and attacked by Hollywood and attacked politically. And that's why you get the election of someone like Donald Trump as a response to that. And unfortunately, the philosophical ideas that create this argument for the patriarchy or systemic racism, all these things, I don't think these are very good arguments, and I don't think their analysis of these systems is very good at all. And it's just about advancing another group of people using a particular color or sexuality or whatever within the system. They are not dismantling the capitalist economic system. They are just trying to change the rules to benefit themselves within that system. So I don't believe these people are out for justice. They're out for personal enrichment. They're just as evil in terms of their capitalism and their consumption as anyone else within this system is. And so they claim to be social justice people, and they're not. They're capitalists. They're greedy capitalists like anyone else.
I think
just
so
as
too.
the evil people on the other side. And that's why the world won't change, because they haven't changed the terms in which they're living their lives. They're living their lives by the same terms as their oppressors, their supposed oppressors. Which makes the whole conflict and all of this stuff totally disinteresting in the end to me, because this is not the great awakening and systematic revolution, the change of the world. This is not any of that. This is just more of the same, and it will be suppressed, and it will go back, and will continue along the same lines as ever before.
I think I totally agree. As I said before, this old black guy on CNN that said that they try to they put black faces in high places, and it didn't work out. And I think it's the same with the feminist movement. What they are fighting for is basically just to be the same as these white old men, and they're not fighting for something better. They are not fighting for a change. The only change that is happening that the person is a different one.
Yeah, they're just going to change the color and the sexuality of the person who does the same job and exploits people in the same way. Yes, you might change the people you exploit, but you haven't changed the exploitative nature of the system itself. They have proposed no solution. And I would just say that there's no human that's ever going to propose a solution. The solution will come from the earth itself. It'll be wiped out because of something that happens. And I hope I'm around to see it. It'll be an exciting time, because then real skills will be necessary to survive. Knowledge about certain things will become necessary, and the real courageous, willful, and committed and religious people will step forward. Those will be the leaders. They will have deserved the leadership. Because they will be on the front lines. They won't be hiding behind their soldiers, having other people do their work for them. They will be on the front lines, leading people into the battles, leading people into the situations. Those are the heroes. We don't have heroes now.
No, I don't know. Our minds are so corrupted already. When I started traveling, like 12 years ago, and I observed that the minds of the people are still so pure in many parts of the world. I don't know if you experienced the same thing in South America, but I think South America is changing quite fast. The minds of the people are getting more and more corrupted and less pure. Within a couple of years.
If you let technology in, the smartphone has been terrible.
I think so too.
But if you let technology into your home, the people sleep with their phones. They're always on. They're always checking them. You have just allowed the state and the corporation entrance into all of your life. And if your life is lived online, you've just opened your whole life up to state and corporate interests. And then you're going to be manipulated. Then the news media manipulate you with stories, shopping things. Your life will become a manipulated one, but it'll be global. It'll be this global life that everyone wants to achieve. You'll get followers and likes and all this, but it's worth nothing. because it will have destroyed your relationship with those people who are next to you, your family, with your friends. You have this now you have an intermediary between you and life. You go to the Grand Canyon and you don't sit there and look at it. You take pictures of it that you post, and then you look to see how many likes you got for your picture.
Yeah, you see the beauty. You see the beauty of this place on the photos you have taken. Yeah.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
And this technology is just it's some of the worst technology. I don't have a solution for it. I do want to get rid of my smartphone.
Me too.
The only reason I keep it is because it has GPS. I really don't use it for a whole lot. I don't do any of the nonsense other people do. But still, the idea that it tracks me, that it monitors me, that it's listening to me, all of that bothers me. But at the same time, I also don't care, because the things that are most important to me, my projects, the stuff I'm working on, they can't touch. They can never touch that stuff. I don't care what state is. They can kill me. I don't care. But they can never touch it. They can never manipulate those things. And that is when you really have something. Is what in your life do you have that really can't be touched by this technology and these bad elements, these things that want to change your life in some way? Can it touch your project? And if the answer is yes, then your project is probably not a worthy one. It's probably not going deep enough. And I'm not saying everyone has to have a great project, but a great project will give your life real meaning. It's a religious experience. It's something very holy and very special. It's where you feel that you found meaning.
Yeah, but I mean, not everybody has skills and the capabilities you have. I mean, you cannot compare yourself with the average person from the street.
I don't mean writing books. I mean, for me, it involves actually creating some things, but it could be raising a family, being a great father. There are lots of things that people are capable of that they do not need the intermediary of Facebook to actually do. And they can be proud of themselves and have real meaning, real love, real connection. It's there for people, but they've rejected families. They've rejected all that. They think that that's...
I don't know. I think family is still... one of the things where people are most similar or quite similar to families 5,000 years ago.
I agree. It's one of the things we still have. It's one of the things that we still have around, and it's becoming less and less important. Already the mother and father both have to work. The family's together less and less. They're geographically they're separated by lots of distance. And once again, what do the family use to stay in touch? Oh, we need Facebook to stay in touch. Oh, we need Facebook. We need Mark Zuckerberg to help us remember each other. I mean, once again, the intermediary has been needed, and that shouldn't happen. That's why I want to be in West Texas or something, where my family sits together at the dinner table together, watches the sun go down, and we talk to each other. And there's no phones. There's nothing. Maybe there's a record player playing.
Yeah, I think so too.
There's no internet.
This is my vision too.
Yeah, and then Uncle Andreas comes and he visits. He has to sneak across the border because the borders are closed. He has to risk his life to come see us. He's hanging out with a bunch of desperados. Yeah, real criminal, international criminal. Yeah, that's a great future. I'm looking forward to that.
I don't know. It seems to be more and more impossible to get this future.
Well, they're making it hard, but we can do it. I can do it. I think within 2 years, if I have to be here 2 more years working, I'll have enough for us to get out of here, and for sure. And I think probably. Maybe sooner.
I finally decided, for multiple reasons, but first of all, in October, I hope I can go back to Southeast Asia on this island. I still have some important work to finish there. But if this will not work out because of some travel restrictions, or because the coronavirus, so there's a second wave or whatever, then in 4 weeks I will go back. So this experiment in Vienna did not work out at all. And I think that the concept of living in a city for me is just not working anymore. I don't want to do this, never ever again. It will probably be even hard for me to have a layover if I have to fly somewhere and have one night in the city. These places are toxic. I think there's no reason for me to be in a place like this. So my plan, if I cannot go back to the island, that I would stay. I have a 2-year plan to stay at my parents' place. I get along very well with my mom at the moment. That's wonderful. My dad, it's a little bit difficult, but he sees the future a little bit grim too. So he welcomed me back to his home in a way I did not expect, actually. But I applied for a job in a big company that is in my village, and it's a similar thing that I did before I started making these experiences abroad, and just thinking of doing this job, being part of this sick system. It's hard for me, really, because I really don't want to work anymore in a job that has no meaning at all besides for economic growth and making other people richer and producing and consuming things that are not necessary.
I agree with that. The whole idea is that why would you work? What are you working for? That's always the question I would have. Why would you give your time to someone else? For what purpose? Someone says, "Yeah, to pay rent." Okay, to pay for all these things.
I mean, this
I understand all that.
This would basically the answer I have to give myself if I get this job. I secure more financial stability to be able to do something in the future. In 2 years, to get more flexibility. To get more independency.
Right, but you're not most people are just working a job because you're supposed to work and then you're supposed to consume and buy
I
bunch
don't
of
do
things
I
you
don't do this.
need.
I mean, that's
you have a bunch
stupid.
of stupid experiences. And I am so through with that. I mean even when I lived that way I didn't like it. And I really hate it now. And I would just, and I'm also bothered by the people that live that way. I don't like being around them. I feel their emptiness, their soullessness. And I just view them as, I can't count on people like that. I view them as weak. I view them as sick. I view them as addicted. There's something nasty. And I don't see them as victims, though. I think some of the most dangerous people are the people who have been exploited. And these people are very dangerous. Yeah, I don't want to see them. I agree with you. Get far away. Just you can't change the world, but you can try and get far away from it.
I can change my world maybe if it's right, still possible.
Exactly.
But also it's that's your phone.
Yeah, there's a. Maybe let's wrap this up.
Okay. Yeah.
Getting some messages.
So I hope. The night will be a little bit less dramatic.
Peaceful. We'll see. I doubt it. I'm sure they're getting ready right now.